Our world has turned. The climate is breaking down. No longer a subject for debate, now it is a matter of fact. The last 2 years have been a window on the future. Famine, fire, flash flood and killer heat waves making swathes of our planet effectively uninhabitable. Within 10 to 15 years, all of this will be the new baseline. A planet that will, at times, feel hostile to our very existence. But we are endlessly innovative. We already have all the tools and techniques we need. If we work fast and together, we can reshape our homes and our cities to better cope. But will we? Can we adapt in time to spare future generations the worst of what is coming?
From the evidence we have, life conditions on Earth would be disrupted. Billions of people would actually have to move out because a large part of planet Earth would be unlivable because of life-threatening temperatures. Storms, floods, droughts hitting very hard, making food production very difficult. So you would have a complete reshaping of the conditions for life on Earth.
This term a new normal, I find it really difficult because there is no new normal. The pace of change is like that. It's not like this. And actually the pace of change is only going to get worse.
Once pumped into the atmosphere, carbon dioxide can last 1,000 years before breaking down. A millennia of trapping heat and warming the globe from the very first moment it was emitted. A legacy that means that in the centuries ahead, even if carbon emissions stopped everywhere in the morning, there is 5 meters of sea level rise that will occur regardless. The map of the world is going to change profoundly, erasing hundreds of coastal cities.
And it's not just coastal areas, it's the inland economic and physical ripple effects of forced relocation of people that will destabilize political systems and economies.
But it will happen far enough into the future that we should learn now from others how best to adapt. Two-thirds of the Netherlands is flood-prone. A third of it lies below sea level. In spite of this, the Dutch face into the next century better adapted to sea level rise than many of us on much higher ground. Storm surge barriers, dams, sluices, locks, pumps, levees, and 22,000 kilometres of dikes have climate-proofed the Dutch till the end of the century.
We all feel very safe here in the Netherlands. And that has a reason, because we are already for 1,000 years working on those sea defenses. And we are confident about that. But that confidence also has to be renewed all the time.
Dutch engineering is a marvel, and we will have to copy some of it. But the most valuable lesson they have to teach us is don't try to defeat sea level rise. Let some of the water go where it wants to.
We have in the Netherlands a Room for the River program that actually means making space for the river again. I think many other countries face this process, right? That there's encroachment in the river floodplains. So basically meaning that if you start living there, you become way more vulnerable to flooding. We started to give space to the river again in several ways, either by lowering floodplains or by actually extending floodplains again.
We have a certain strategy of looking ahead, even beyond 100 years, which keeps us safe. And that is a very important aspect of our way of dealing with this phenomena.
At the Deltares facility in Delft, they test the Netherlands' existing dikes and flood barriers to destruction, to find out how long they will last.
We need top quality dikes here in the Netherlands. It's obvious because we have such a low-lying country.
Mark and his colleagues take a cross-section out of a dike and then rebuild it in their flume. Then they pound it repeatedly with waves to see how long it will hold up.
We have here a continuous slope of grass and clay, and that is very handy for our research because we want to find the relation between the waves attacking the clay and how much erosion it will take, how much clay will be washed away over time. And we can generate here the largest waves, artificial waves, of the whole world.
Because of what has happened to you in the last 100 years. In the last 1,000 years, you are always thinking 100 years ahead.
It used to be just seeing what happened and then responding to that. And now we are looking ahead rationally. We are calculating the exceedance of certain water levels, etc.
I understand. You have stopped emergency planning, you have started adaptive planning.
Yes. And that adaptive planning can help us much better also regarding climate change.
And that adaptation need not always be expensive or complex engineering. These dunes and beach are actually entirely man-made and protect against storm surges. Brechtje van Wessenbeek is an expert in nature-based solutions, soft engineering, mimicking nature. We walked along one of the Netherlands' most successful artificially created natural defences. Enormous amounts of sand here have been pumped from the seabed onto the shore, creating a robust flood buffer.
So it's all about the amount of sand you put somewhere, and during a storm, the waves actually lose energy by taking away the sand. We're not going to protect all these coastlines with hard defenses. It's a matter of cost, it's a matter of maintenance, a matter of resources. So I think we know there will be sea level rise, which will actually translate into coastal erosion. So a large part of the answer is in keeping the natural system along these coastlines as resilient as possible to sea level rise.
The Dutch have adapted their political system to rising waters just as much as their sea defences. Climate change preparations have been moved beyond politics. They have what they call the Delta Programme, a process of planning, funding and building these defences, which has taken the decision-making out of the political realm and handed it over to experts.
I think for other countries to also adopt the Delta Programme way of thinking and take away the longer-term decisions on climate change adaptation out of the political arena could be a wise model to actually start a discussion. And I think the close collaboration there with science is very valuable.
this has not been easy. Letting the water in goes very much against the grain for the Dutch. As part of their Room for the River programme, 23 kilometres of dike keeping the Noordvaart polder dry were removed. Better, they thought, that farmers be occasionally compensated for flooding than a densely populated city be destroyed. 4,500 hectares of farmland became wetland. 50 farms were relocated. It was traumatic for those who had to move, and even now, locals don't like talking about it. But to polder is now a word in the political dictionary in the Netherlands. It means to agree something in the common good. Time then that we stop defending against the flooding that has already happened and start planning for what science says will come. Time to stop thinking in 4 or 5 year election cycles. Now is the moment to decide where we stay and defend, and from where we will start a staged retreat. Because when governments get it wrong, it is devastating.
It would be fair to say that if there was a blueprint for how managed realignment should be done, Fairborn is exactly and precisely the opposite of that.
10 years ago, Gwynedd Council in Wales realised that defending the village of Fairborn from rising seas was no longer sustainable. Without deciding what should be done for the people of the village, they announced that after 2054, Fairborn would no longer be protected from the sea.
It's a monumentous decision. It was one that was unique at that moment, and it suddenly turned the residents' lives upside down.
The decision may have been financially pragmatic. Keeping the 700 people of Fairborn dry was going to cost £70 million. But there was no discussion of relocation or compensation. And not doing that passed an effective death sentence on Fairborn.
You saw property prices slashed significantly. This is people's, what they were going to pass on to their next of kin, their family. People wanted to try and get out of Fairborn before all of these things came to a head and more money was lost. The town's future became a national media issue. There was a frenzy of coverage, particularly because of this idea, the UK's first climate refugees.
Much of the world's coastline is just as, if not more vulnerable than Wales to climate change. Getting the policy right will be tricky, but at least we know what getting it wrong looks like.
I think that you get to this situation where you must look elsewhere, there must be better ways of doing it, and there are discussions of that in various different places around the world. But certainly Gwynedd and Fairborn is an example of how not to conduct yourself.
The choice is clear. We can have an uncomfortable and probably heated debate now about retreat, or we can ignore it and pay a higher bill when evacuation is the only option. In the centuries ahead, we will have to contend with 5 meters of sea level rise. All of our major cities, sitting on the sea and at the mouths of large rivers, will need to be entirely reimagined. It would be a serious mistake to think that we only have things to learn from rich countries. There are much poorer countries in the climate change firing line right now who are doing more with less. Bangladesh, pummeled by cyclones, rising seas, coastal erosion, drought and heat waves. There are few places where climate change is more pressing, but also few that have such a head start in figuring out what must be done.
In the last 3 decades, we lost 10% of arable lands. It has gone down from some 9 million hectares to approximately 8 million hectares. By 2050, the projection is that we are likely to lose another 8 to 10% of land.
Climate change has a habit of hitting those with least the hardest. Coastal erosion caused by rising sea levels means the Manta people have had to adapt to a way of life completely alien to humans.
আমরা নদীতে কেন আছি দাদা আমাদের তো কোনো জায়গা জমি নেই ঘর বাড়ি নেই এখন আমরা কোনো একটা এই ঘর বাড়ি পাইও না সরকারি অবস্থায়ও ঘর বাড়ি পাই না
Once the Manta were farmers, but floods and river erosion took their land. So they took to the water. The people of this community will be born, married and die on these boats. Every meal and night's sleep of their lives will happen on these boats.
শুনেন সেই জিনিসটা হচ্ছে কি আমরা এই নদীটার থেকে আমাদের যদি ছেলে মেয়ে নিয়ে বউটো নিয়ে যদি আমরা একটু উপরে উঠতে পারতাম তাহলে আমাদের জীবনটা খুব একটা ধন্য হয়ে যেত এর একটু জায়গা দিয়ে তো আমাদেরকে কিছু ঘর দিয়ে দেন আমাদের এইখানে 178টা ফ্যামিলি 600-র উপরে আছে সদস্য
Bangladesh is 3 times smaller than Germany, but has twice the population. When your land is taken by the sea, there simply isn't any more to hand out. For 300,000 Manta people, this Mad Max meets Waterworld existence is their future. Bangladesh is home to 2 of the world's great rivers, the Ganges and the Brahmaputra. They split into 700 rivers in the delta. Climate change has made river and coastal erosion here ever more dramatic. Of those who opt to stay on land after their homes have been washed away, Masima Begum's story would be typical.
আস্তে আস্তে অল্পই জায়গা আছিল এরমের করতে করতে ভাঙতে ভাঙতে একেবারে শেষ ভাঙা দিয়েছে তারপর একেবারে ঘরেই চলে গেছে
155
পাশে তো পুষ্কুনি আছিল পুষ্কুনির পাশে গাছ লাগানো আর রেন্ডি গাছ আর চাম্বল গাছ আছিল অনেক ফলের গাছ আছিল হ্যাঁ ভালোই আছিল একেবারে দরজার সামনে আছিল গাছ লাগানো ওই জায়গা দিয়ে আসছে এই জায়গায় আসছে অনেক কষ্ট হয়েছে আমাদের সবারই কষ্ট হয়েছে ওই জায়গায় দিয়ে আসার মানে করে
Here is a slum in the city of Barasal, an area the size of 5 football pitches which is home to 8,000 people. And just one of thousands across the country, increasingly filled with climate refugees.
The problem of urban migration in Dhaka city, for example, we are seeing every 24 hours in the order of 2,000 migrants coming here, mostly from the coastal zone of the country. Many of them climate refugees, no longer just economic migrants.
Masima and her friend take me an hour down the coast to where she used to live. We don't really get close though, because what was her farm just 8 years ago is now over a kilometre out to sea.
এই জায়গাটা আমার বাড়ি অনেক ভালোই আছিল, অনেক ভালোই লাগছিল। আর এই জায়গায় আমরা সব কিছু লাগাইয়ে খাইতাম, খেতে হইতো। তারপর গরু আছিল, ওইগুলা গরুর দুধ খাইতাম, তারপর গরু পালতাম। ওই জায়গার এখন তো আর বরিশালে এটা হয় না। ধান হইতো, ডাল হইতো, আলু হইতো, তিলও লাগাইতো, তিল খেতে লাগাইতো।
Masama is just one of 173 million people in what is reckoned to be the 7th most climate change vulnerable nation in the world. But Bangladeshis see themselves as the most climate adapted country in the world.
People in the West just do not believe it's going to happen to them. There is no expectation that they're going to be hit by a storm or that, they would be losing assets or the possibility of losing their lives. We anticipate storms, and our disaster preparedness has been done accordingly. As a result, we have lost fewer lives in Bangladesh.
In Vatarakanda Government School, in the flood-prone southwest of the country, children learn about climate change and how to prepare for the cyclones which now come several times a year.
Okay, hi. Okay, 4 এবং 5 চতুর্থ এবং পঞ্চম শ্রেণীতে ওদের বাংলাদেশ ও বিশ্ব পরিচয়ের ভিতরে আবহাওয়া জলবায়ু এইখানে এই যে বাতাস দুইটা ক্লাসে দুইটা অধ্যায় আছে। এটা সপ্তাহে 2 দিন করে ওদের ক্লাস হয়। এই ক্লাসের ভিতরে ওদেরকে বুঝিয়ে দেওয়ার চেষ্টা করা হয়।
This school and thousands of others in Bangladesh were rebuilt to serve 2 roles. It is now Vatarakanda Government School and Vatarakanda Cyclone Centre.
75 নং ভাটারকান্দা সাইক্লোন শেল্টারে যখন ঝড় আসে তখন চতুর্দিকে অত্র এলাকার লোক আসে।
Room for livestock on the bottom 2 floors and everyone else in the community in the classrooms above.
যে ভলান্টিয়ার আনসার বিডিপি এবং গ্রাম্য লোকজন ইয়ং জেনারেশন তারপর এই এলাকার সবাই সচেতন থাকে এবং বাড়িতে গিয়ে বৃদ্ধ থাকলে ওদেরকে নিয়ে আসে এবং গরু ছাগল এগুলো আনার জন্য সাহায্য সহযোগিতা যত প্রকার লাগে অত কইরা এই সাইক্লোন শেল্টারে আনিয়া তারা নিরাপদ আশ্রয় দিয়ে যায়।
Bangladesh's main adaptation trick is social, not physical infrastructure. When extreme weather hits, Bangladeshis don't act individually, but communally. They don't see themselves as safe until every last person is safe. Deaths from storms or floods are now virtually non-existent, whereas for us in the developed north, it seems to be practically assured. And when the water recedes, the community acts as one to repair what has been damaged.
Strikes me looking at it from the outside, though, that your secret ingredient is social cohesion. You're responding at a community level.
Absolutely. Investment, I would say, that we have had most success with is in children in the coastal zone of the country. Every school has a cyclone warning program. We try to leave no one behind, and we are pretty successful at doing that. Everybody helps everybody. Rich, poor, we all get out and we help each other as soon as something bad happens.
We tend to measure climate adaptation in the height of our flood protection. It feels like a mistake to not also measure the depth of our social solidarity. The United Nations estimates that by the end of this decade, we will need to be spending $350 billion a year to adapt lives around the developing world to climate change. Just $3 billion a year in foreign aid would allow Bangladesh to implement its adaptation plans. Florida's coastline is one of the most vulnerable in the Western world. Its property market is also one of the most valuable. The estimated cost for a seawall to keep the entire state safe is $76 billion. And that would only work until 2040. The most vulnerable part of the Sunshine State is the Florida Keys, a group of islands south of Miami.
We are looking at almost 5 feet of sea level rise by the year 2100. If those projections actually come true, that's a lot of water rising over very low islands. We're going to lose large swaths of islands. We will lose entire islands.
In the Keys, even without the storm surge of increasingly common hurricanes, the water is creeping uncomfortably high.
So when you look at what you see here, for this time of year, this is what we call good. Just a few inches of water localized here to this corner. What it was a week ago, 2 weeks ago, was almost the entire neighborhood. This street around the corner, all the way down, that street halfway down, so affected many, many residents. It's not what we like to see, but unfortunately, it's a sign of the times now in the Florida Keys with the sea level rise.
Some residents of Key Largo feel that this is not what they pay their taxes for. They have already rebuilt their houses on stilts, and now they want the county to elevate the road so that they can come and go as they please for 12 months of the year, not just 10.
We don't have garbage pickup. We don't get mail delivery. You can't get food delivered. You can't have any work done on your house.
We're in a third world country over here.
A third world country, come on.
Yeah. I mean,
get our mosquitoes
and
our smells
and the smell and the...
Yeah, it's not pretty.
It's Bangladesh.
Yeah, it's not that bad, right?
It's not Bangladesh, guys. No. It's really not Bangladesh.
No.
Probably the most vulnerable neighborhood in all of the Keys. $40 million it's going to cost to elevate the roads in that neighborhood. It's about 3 to 4 miles.
The problem from Broward County's point of view is that $40 million for the roads around just 200 homes misses the bigger picture of what needs to be done.
For the roads adaptation program, we're looking at several $billion, probably $4 to $5 billion for a county of 85,000 residents. So we have thousands of homes here that are ground level, and so when the water comes in, they're just going to go underwater. So we have a federal program where they have a list of 4,700 homes that they are recommending for elevation to make them more resilient to sea level rise, and that's at a cost of over $2 billion.
But $5 billion for roads and $2 billion for house raising will only buy the Florida Keys another 2 or 3 decades before the waters come anyway. Bizarrely, though, property prices don't seem to be affected by this information.
You have to wonder. And I asked the residents that. I said, how's the real estate market? Oh, yeah, they have banner year. Last year was a banner year. The year before was a banner year.
But this is the very dictionary definition of what a stranded asset is.
It is. It is. And I get a lot more calls than I used to now from realtors and mostly from people looking to buy here. So what I tell them is, if we get the plans, if we get the money to elevate, your road will be good for 20 years. If not, it's not going to be habitable even in the next 3 to 5 years. So it's roll the dice.
Is 40 million wise money to be spending on a place that you know is going to end up underwater several decades from now?
No.
And no. I mean, a crazy amount. I mean, for 40 million, I mean...
There has to be a cheaper solution.
For a lot less money, they could just raise our roads, and we could get in and out. There are a lot of...
I suppose, though, CJ, the question is, why spend any money when you know that you're throwing good after bad?
But you could say that about, okay, Long Island, I think, and Manhattan are both experiencing that right now.
Can the taxpayer subsidize your lifestyle justly and in fairness?
No, I mean, if someone said, hey, you know, here's
crazy
incredible
money.
amount of money for you,
Yeah, crazy
you gotta
money.
leave, okay, we'll leave.
The budget for just raising the roads throughout the Florida Keys would fund the whole of Bangladesh's national adaptation plan for 2 years. Key Largo's dilemma is true of so many other places. The tyranny of sunk capital. Too expensive to abandon, too costly to defend. Clever climate adaptation will be about exercising ruthless and unsentimental common sense. In the years ahead, rising waters will be added to by the challenges of fire.
It's been described as hell on earth.
Fireys are battling desperately.
For the first time, a catastrophic danger warning's been issued.
In 2023, 1 billion acres of land around the world was destroyed by wildfire, smashing all previous records in an already worrying trend. Wildfire experts believe that global warming means many countries are going to have to start managing the landscape very differently to adapt to what is coming. With longer, warmer, wetter growing seasons thanks to climate change, there will be more vegetation, and with longer periods of drought, also thanks to climate change, that vegetation will some years turn tinder dry. Experts in wildfire management like Nuria Pratgitar say that across Northern Europe, even countries as wet as Britain and Ireland are going to have to start thinking a little more like Mediterranean countries about how to adapt to fire.
So we have had wildfires in the landscapes we are now for centuries and millennia. Fire has been an element that has shaped Mediterranean landscapes. But it is true that we've seen different changes in the landscapes through the centuries, and especially in recent years, that are showing us that the wildfire risk is increasing. We see that because the fire seasons, the time of the year where we see fires, is getting longer. Previous years we've seen fires almost all year long, when before it used to be in the summer months between June and September. We see fires that are more intense, so higher flame lengths, spreading faster, more extreme fire behavior. And we see that the consequences, the severity that those fires have in the ecosystem are also increasing.
Wildfires in temperate countries are mostly manageable now, but Nuria's research shows they are evolving into something far more destructive and deadly.
The modeling results are telling us that right now, for instance, we have flame lengths of 1 meter to 2 meters high of fire front, and those are going to increase to more than 2 meters. So having people fighting those kinds of flames, it's not possible, it's not safe.
In her native Catalonia, Nuria showed me the aftermath of a recent wildfire.
The official reports from the Catalan Fire Service indicate that in some places the flames were over 60, 70 meters high. So a fire like that, it cannot be fought. You can only evacuate.
Managing the landscape, be it northern or southern Europe, is the best way to reduce the risk of fire. And how do you manage the landscape? One way is with a fire flock. The sheep graze the undergrowth, the goats the low-hanging branches. Between them, they substantially reduce the available fuel without being allowed to graze one place long enough to damage biodiversity. The fire service are such big fans of fire flocks that there are now 90 of them in Catalonia alone.
Farming is one of the primary activities that we have in these landscapes and definitely helps preventing large forest fires. This is an opportunity for farming and for managing wildfires, reducing the risk, creating more resilient landscapes to climate change. Silviculture doesn't work alone, generally. It requires additional payments or support, and this can be done through different systems. But it's definitely a cheaper way to maintain our landscapes, manage and prevent wildfires than having machinery, or definitely cheaper than wildfires that will cost millions.
Fire and flood will be challenging. But the climate change threat that will make or break all of human civilization is famine. Like all of sub-Saharan Africa, Malawi frequently experiences drought, followed in short order by floods. Now climate change is reducing the recovery periods between each extreme weather event.
Malawi cannot feed itself in the coming years. In 10, 20 years to come, it will be very, very difficult for the nation to produce food enough for its growing population amidst the climate environment that we are experiencing these years.
Humankind's greatest immediate task of climate adaptation will be to ensure that the 1.2 billion people living in sub-Saharan Africa are fed in the next 25 years. Thanks to climate change, the hungry months start earlier and earlier each year.
Ulitimalize August, September, October, November, December. Zidali kulepeleka.
Mvula imagwa okutobala. Anthu kunoko timadzala okutobala. Koma kupita kwa nthawi mvula ikukayamba mu December nthawi inanso mu January. Komanso matenthedwe masiku ambuyo kukati kwatentha. Sikulali kutentha ngati mmene kulili kuti mwina timabwerera ma 37 mwina 36 ndikuti kwatentha. Koma panopo kukufika 42.
But there is cause for optimism. With the assistance of NGOs like Trokara and their Malawian partners, Eric and Elizabeth have learned how to diversify their crops and intensify production. Where once he relied on just one crop of maize harvested in March, now Eric grows up to a dozen different foods that are harvested throughout the year.
Odi leo lino mukandifunsa moyo wanga ndiwosintha kwambiri poyerekeza ndi mmene ndinayambira ntchito iyi. Madyedwe, ana kusukulu, ngakhale pakhomo pano.
Learning how to diversify and harvest rainwater for use all year round has meant the difference between hunger and being better fed for Elizabeth Boyce.
Can you give me a list of all of the crops that you're growing now?
Mapira, chewere, chimanga, mapira, chewere, tikatengera kuzipatso, tomato timapyala. Tipamene zakwana ngati mbewu 8 zomwe timagwiritsa ife ntchito za munda.
And do you think that as the climate changes more, it's going to become even more important to have a lot of different things growing on the farm?
Pamene tayamba kulima ulimi wakasakani, ife tikuona kuti ili bwino kusiyana ndi mmene tidalili pambuyopa.
These adapted farms are solving the problem of an unkind climate, one household at a time. But the money that the West gives governments and NGOs to help make sub-Saharan Africa food secure is nowhere near enough to adapt every farm.
If the West is not able to support Malawi in terms of food, technologies, and all irrigation and all means that will help Malawi to get food, people are going to leave Malawi to look for greener pasture in the West because it is where they can find what they need.
Making countries like Malawi food secure is very much in our interests. Saying how many would migrate to the West in the years ahead is guesswork. But already it is easy to see how migration is twisting Malawian society out of shape. The district of Machinga has seen so many men leave looking for work that the population is now 70% female.
Azibambo ose mungati dera linolo azibambo ose panopa ndikuona kuti chifukwa cha kusintha kwa nyengo azibambo ambiri ali kuti ena ali Mozambique ena kujoni ena muti kumatani kuphatikizapo aine ali kutinso aenda.
And do you think that your husband or other men are thinking now about moving to Europe or to the wealthy countries?
Ndikovuta chifukwa chake ndienda azibambo ambiri bamatani amathabe kumatani kumasuntha kuchoka malo amene ali kumapitabe usogolo mwina sewo atawapanga zimenezo panthu akuenda chifukwa cha vuto limene kumapezeka kuno mwina so kapena mayiko enawo.
Aisha may have lost her husband to migration, but she has gained food security, thanks to one of those many small and low-cost irrigation projects that are helping people to stay on the land and better weather what is coming. This is what adaptation looks like. A hard grind, farm by farm, country by country. Adapting only to problems within our own shores misses the point completely. As Bangladesh taught us, We are not adapted to what is coming until we are all adapted to what is coming. It's natural to assume that human civilization will endure more or less how it looks now. But we can't say that with any great confidence any longer. Humankind will not disappear. But throughout history, civilizations have risen and fallen. The history books are full of those that failed to adapt when the future arrived. Over the next 50 years, as many as 3 billion people could be left trying to live in conditions that no human has ever survived. If this is the start of the decline of human civilization, then that will have been our choice. Their future will be what we make it. In the final episode, there is only so much adapting to what is coming that humankind can do. We need to stop overheating the planet immediately and start cooling it down. Getting off fossil fuels will be perhaps the most monumental task undertaken by humankind. How can it be done, and how will it change our lives?